Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome back to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we are bringing you a first look at forthcoming Tier 10 Premium Dutch Destroyer. This is Tromp, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, so all you native Dutch speakers in the comments, have at. I'm not ever going to be a native Dutch speaker. The accent absolutely confounds me, so sorry, can't help you. But this is Tromp, not to be mistaken with a somewhat infamous American current political figure. Tromp is currently in testing here as we are sitting in 11.8, patch 0.11.8 in World of Warships. So this is our first chance to have a look around this ship. So what I like to do, let's poke around, let's look at her stats, let's compare her to her contemporaries, see how she measures up. Tromp is the 23rd Tier 10 destroyer, Tier 10 destroyer to come into World of Warships. That's really stunning when you consider that there are only, let me count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 tech tree destroyers. So very nearly half of the available destroyers at Tier 10 are now premium ships in some form or other, whether that's coal, steel, doubloons, whatever. And Tromp will join that list. She also is the first Dutch destroyer in this tier. There's actually only one other Dutch destroyer in the game at all, and that is Groningen. Groningen, of course, is a clone of European destroyer Friesland. There was a whole big thing where when they introduced Friesland, when they were gonna move Friesland out of the European branch into the Dutch branch, and people got angry, and so they cloned it, and now you can have whichever one you want, but it's literally the same ship. So Tromp is now going to be the first kind of purely unique Dutch kind of on its own destroyer, and let's have a look around, shall we? So first things first, as we do, we like to talk about survivability. Here we go, 24,500 hit points. This is a respectable health pool for a Tier 10 destroyer, but it is certainly not best in tier or anything to go ooh and get excited about, right? It's not bad. It's definitely on the high end, but I mean, there's quite a number of destroyers that have more HP than this, right? Harugamo, Ragnar, Druid, Forrest Sherman. I'm looking at Elbing, right? So there's Alvaro de Bazan, which is very brand new. So there's, I'd say, about a quarter to a third of the field still ahead of Tromp in terms of HP. But this is not bad. This is a solid health pool. Armor wise, nothing to get excited about here. 19 millimeter plating throughout. This is not some kind of fancy destroyer with, Haberov's type plating or something. Now, she does have some kind of, she doesn't have a Citadel, not the way that Citadel hits in this game are tracked, right? But she does have some extra armor plating outside of the 19 millimeters on the exterior of the hull. I gotta find a way to put that back up again. There we go. Right, see, normally this would be it, right? But Tromp actually does have some inner armor plating here of the 30 mil variety. So I'm not entirely positive how this is going to interact with HE shells. An HE shell hitting her outer hull will get credit, should, I would think, get credited with a regular old HE full penetration. But it would not probably, depending on the HE in question, penetrate this inner area. So does that matter? Does it count? I don't know, right? I don't think it's going to matter in the end. I think all that armor plate is fancy and pretty, but I'm not convinced it's going to make a difference in her survivability or how shells impact her. A little bit of testing, I think we'll be able to verify that very quickly, but of course, I can't do that for the purposes of this video. So we did survivability. Let's talk about maneuverability and concealment. Very critical stats for a destroyer. 33.5 knots, 720 on the turning circle, 5.3 on the rudder shift. Speed-wise, this ship's not going to win any awards. 33.5 is, well, let's look. Is it the actual slowest Tier 10 destroyer? You know what? It is. It is the slowest Tier 10 destroyer. I had not noticed that until this moment, but it is. That hurts. That hurts a little bit. Handling-wise, if I had to pick something you might have driven that is a comparison, Grozovoy is probably similar. The rudder shift is within about a half a second or so, and the turning circle is the same. And the overall length doesn't look completely unreasonable between the two, right? Because Grozovoy's got a double turret forward and a single turret aft. So yeah, you're looking at kind of, let's say, a slower Grozovoy, and Grozovoy already don't feel that fast, right? When you play that ship, she doesn't feel amazing in terms of speed, and Tromp here is not going to be winning any awards. So that's not very exciting. Concealment. we're seeing there 7.3 on the surface. It's actually 7.33 kilometers base stealth on the surface. Full stealth rig on this ship is 5.94 kilometers of surface detection. That's very competitive for the tier. Yes, there are a few ships that are ahead of it, mostly ships like Shimakaze, Vampire Deuce. What else is ahead of it? Yu Yang, okay, but she is very much in the top 5, right? So this is a very stealthy destroyer, certainly for one that's flexing this kind of a health pool. So okay, a little bit to like there maybe. So let's talk about the guns, right? This is I mean, probably not a torpedo destroyer. I don't know. Let's find out. We'll get there in a minute. But the guns, you're looking at a 3x2 of 150 millimeter guns. These are in a 2 forward, an ABX turret arrangement. 2 super firing turrets up forward, 1 turret hanging on the aft. You see there a 6.5 second reload and an 18-second turret traverse time. The traverse time is going to feel a little bad at this tier, right? That does not, a turret traverse time like that does not lend itself well to any kind of brawling. So yeah, you've got a lot of HP, and you might think like, oh yeah, I can bully something around, but if you get in a close range gunfight, and this thing can with that stealth, you're probably not going to be all that amazing in terms of keeping your guns on target. As far as gun shell ballistics and punch and all the rest of that stuff, there is a little bit to like here. These guns are 150 millimeter Dutch guns. I tried to run some comparisons. The nearest comparison that I can find are the main battery guns on Tier 8 Premium Dutch Cruiser De Zeven Provincia, which are 152 millimeter guns. But basically, the shell is the same. The shell velocity is the same. The caliber, I think even the caliber of the barrel is the same. So like the gun handling should feel very, very similar. If you've got a D7P, you've driven that ship, you like it, you like the guns, you're probably going to like what you're going to get here with Tromp. The 11% HE fire chance there on the main battery shells does tie her for best in tier with Ragnar. Because again, Ragnar, just like this ship, has basically what amounts to light cruiser guns. So you're getting a lot of punch out of those shells, good fire chances, only 25 millimeters of pen because we're not German. So she'll be good for beating up other destroyers and for lighting fires on opposing, capital ships and heavy cruisers, that sort of thing. Not going to get a lot of full pen damage against many things larger than she is. Yeah, so that's kind of the main battery. 13.3 kilometers of range is solid. It's solid. It's a little above average, let's say. There are, am I only seeing the one ship that's better than this? Okay, so she's apparently number 2. No, 2. There's 2 ships ahead of this. Kleber is ahead of this at 13.6, and Vampire Deuce is ahead of this at 13.8. Even Elbing, with guns of basically the same caliber as this, and Ragnar, with basically guns of the same caliber as this, don't quite have this much range. So she's got a lot going for her in that regard. The ability to do what she does from a decent amount of range. And you could put more range on these guns. So that's okay. So maybe there's something to the main battery there. So look at Torpedoes, the other hallmark, trademark destroyer weapon. Tromp has 2 of these, 1 triple launcher on each side of the ship. This is an unusual design for Tier 10. By this tier, we generally find torpedo launchers center mounted so they can go over either side. Tromp eschews that convention. She has 1 triple on each side, and that is it. The torpedoes themselves are not all that exciting. These are 13,700 alpha damage on a 64 knots of speed and a 10-kilometer range. I'm trying to see if there's anybody else in the tier that basically kind of matches up to this. And Grozavoy's torpedoes kind of come close, right? Those hit a little harder and now have more range, but you're in kind of the ballpark between the speed and the alpha damage. One of the benefits that Tromp has, of course, is that her torpedoes reload very quickly. You see there, only 70 seconds of cooldown on those triple launchers. So that means that she'll be able to put a lot of these into the water pretty regularly. Not great range, not amazing damage, but I bet if you're with smart positioning, you can get some good work out of them. So, okay, something to like there. Nothing to make you go ooh rah, but you kind of nod and go, all right, that's interesting. Depth charges, as a nominally European destroyer, Tromp is saddled with the worst depth charges in the game. Only 2,000 points of damage, only two charges with 6 bombs in a rack. So basically, it's treat this thing like a European destroyer. You really don't want to be hunting submarines with it because you're really bad at it. The sub will laugh at you and shrug off the damage, and people like me will continue to complain to Wargaming that anti-submarine warfare is grossly imbalanced depending on what nation you're driving. This is something that is unique to Tromp. If you'll recall, the Dutch cruisers, the Dutch light cruiser, well, Dutch cruiser line has access to that kind of goofy airstrike ability, and so does Tromp here as a destroyer. She gets 2 charges of this, 12 planes in a charge, in an attack run, with a bunch of bombs and so on and so forth. So again, without having to try this, I'm not 100% positive of the all-in alpha damage and everything of this strike. But if you're comfortable using the Dutch airstrikes, this has some potential, certainly for harassing big stationary heavy cruisers or battleships. The downside, she has to be within 8 kilometers to use it. That is really rough. I mean, sure, she's on a 6-kilometer detection, but she's going to be playing in a tier where she will regularly see 12-kilometer radar. And you have to get within 8 kilometers to use your fancy airstrike? Yikes. I don't know about this, kids. I don't know about this. This feels like a trap to me. Now, there are other uses for this, right? Let's say you've got an opposing destroyer that's camped out in smoke. You can bomb him. I've had some good luck doing that with my Dutch cruisers along the way. So you got to be looking for other opportunities to use this thing. But with that 8-kilometer range at tier 10, it's going to be a challenge. So kind of dubious here as to whether or not this is amazing. Now, one last thing we got to talk about is AA defense. The Dutch light cruisers at the tie end have outstanding AA defense. Tier 9 premium Dutch destroyer, Groningen, has outstanding AA defense. Tromp has none of these problems. She doesn't have a long-range aura at all, so you have no flak, no long-range aura. Her AA bubble starts at 3.5 kilometers on the base of the 76mm 3-inch guns here along the side of the ship. So that feels not so amazing. And then she backs that mid-range aura up with some 40mm Bofors because, hey, there you go. That's what you do when you're European destroyer. And then for that inner bubble, she's got some 20mm Oerlikons up here on the superstructure. All in, the continuous damage of this bubble is roughly equivalent to, I think, about Kleber or so, with about the same range. So, actually, it's a little better than Kleber, but not like majorly better than Kleber. So that's probably the nearest analog. Like most destroyers, it's more than enough to shoot down fighter planes that get dumped on your head by the opposing carrier to try to keep you lit. But is it going to be enough to actively provide defense for your team, actively screen yourself from incoming aerial attack? No, none of these things are going to be a problem. You're not going to be able to do any of those things. Now, last but not least, consumables. Destroyers sometimes can have really interesting consumable lists, and Tromp does not. She has damage control party. She is, after all, still a ship in World of Warships, and a regular old 8% 2-minute duration engine boost. That's it. That's it. I gotta say, guys, as I look at the whole package here, I'm not all that excited. I love a good destroyer as much as the next guy. I thoroughly enjoy playing destroyers in this game. This ship does not really call to me in any way, shape, or form. I see a ship that wants to be a long-range gunboat, that doesn't have long-range, that doesn't have the range on her torpedoes or her airstrike armament to get regular use out of them without taking crazy risks in most situations she's likely to find herself in. So, I don't know. I have a feeling this is a ship is going to change pretty heavily in testing. Remember, guys, we just got this ship. You're looking at the very first test iteration here. Do not be surprised if what comes to live ultimately looks very different than this, because right now, I think this ship needs a lot of work. Thanks for watching, guys. In the meantime, wash your hands, be safe. I will catch you later.